We have Achieng Emily. Help the parents understand the guidelines to enable parents to take a stand. At Lepario, increased school fees, increased textbooks, cost is subjecting parents in far-flung areas to economic strain. Dr. Lumala, school heads should not be allowed to deny needy children access to education for whatever reason. And at Weweru DN, free increment is always after mutual consent during the AGMs. Keep talking to us on 22422 on Twitter using the hashtag Monday Special KE. I want to ask a question here to Ken Okoth and Janet. Is it fair to some of these schools? For example, I'll give an example that was there before. Moi Girls, before the guidelines were issued, was charging about 119,000. It has not really complied like we saw today, but substantively has reduced to about 85,000 this year. How do they meet the deficit given the budgetary provisions of such schools prior? And number two, are you saying these schools have the same needs? For example, a school in Nairobi and a school in Turkana or Lagdera, for them to have the same fee guidelines?
I think I'll take that, Hussein. The first thing, I think the one thing that Omboko has said today, out of all the bluster, was the issue of genuine right to education must include access to teachers. But we also must make sure that the teachers in our schools are teaching and not under teaching, are absentee teachers. And so you find even KCPE, which is a basic exam, half of the country is failing. That tells you we are providing 80% of the teachers, but they are not providing 80% of the outputs. Let us put this in the interest of the children first and the interest of the parents of Kenyans.
Okay.
Number two, we must make a budget as parliament based on making sure we can pay all those teachers, so we are not transferring to parents who have already paid taxes to also go to AGMs and tax themselves again to fill teacher gap shortages. So I think there's challenges that must be done from the government side. But the solution is not for head teachers to flout the law and take the law into their hands. When I speak to parents here, what I want to tell the Kenyan parents, if you feel under pressure by any school right now, just be courageous, pay what the guidelines that the ministry has set, and let the school dare to kick your child out. It is at that point, yes, pay exactly what the ministry and the government has said, because that has the force of law.
Is that what you've done?
The teacher who has come in with AGM resolution and fee structure, that does not supersede the laws of Kenya and the Gazette notes. We give him a chance.
Yeah.
So then you have, for instance, the case of Dagoretti High School. The judge ruled last January, in January 2014, 2015, the years are flying. That a child could enroll at Dagoretti High School for the fee of 20,000 shillings only, and the boy is at Dagoretti High School. So if parents start to take back their rights and make sure they are not bullied, if a boy can go to Dagoretti for 20,000 because the judge ruled in their favor and Dagoretti accepted that child, any other parent in Kenya who is allowing themselves to be exploited also should just get together and get serious and say, I am paying the maximum that the government has said. Here is my 10,000 for a day school. The deputy president, who I don't agree with often on many things, said it very clearly this weekend. It's a policy of the government. Let us implement it and let us come back to the debate fairly. How do we budget? Do we tax the whole country more, or do we reduce taxes? Do we reduce corruption and wastage in other sectors and invest more in education? But we have teachers we can hire and we can pay them fairly, and then we demand and accountability for them to actually teach our children, for all our children can pass.
Right. Just answer your question on whether we thought 53,000 was enough. I think
it's fair to all schools. There are different schools in far-flung areas where they have problems more than the schools in Nairobi, yet you want them to have the same guideline.
I think the idea was not necessarily to have everybody at 53, is why there was that clause that should there be anything more pressing, then there is room for discussion. But we are expecting probably plus or minus 6,000 or 5,000 thereabout, but it's not the variances that we are seeing now. You know, a variance of about 40 or 50,000, that cannot be justified. But I think also we need to squarely place the blame on government, because what we keep hearing, especially the deputy president just told us the other day that the government has increased the amount of money that they spend per child. But I think the truth of the matter is, since the 2008, when government introduced free-day secondary education, the government was paying 10,000, and only in 2015 the government increased by 2,000, which is not necessarily an increase, but it caters for inflation. You know, that is something you can consider caters for inflation. So in the real sense, we are badly off than we were in 2008. So there is really something, if government is really committed and if really they aim to ensure that secondary school is free, then why can't they do like Kibaki did? He offered 10,000 per child. Why can't the government say that we're also offering another 10? So we have 20. That would be amazing. Number two is the question of teachers, which is always very contentious. And the moment we shall manage as a country to disentangle ourselves from this politicization of teacher issues and professionalize, the better for all of us. Because I do not understand why Hussein, as much as we are saying, as he has read, that every child has a right, equally every child has a right to access to a teacher. Why would a school in Nairobi have 28 teachers or even 30, while another school has only 2 teachers? Why can't we first ensure
that other school use the same fee guidelines in the one in Nairobi?
That's what I'm saying.
Sense?
That school now would have more expensive. But you know the irony, this school that has even more teachers is even charging higher fees for other reasons, because the fees structure that you have displayed here, and you can do that again for the benefit of our viewers, none has a component of teachers. None out of those you have displayed here, none has a component of teachers. So the story, he can display that again for your benefit. He can. But what we are saying, we'll come to you a little bit. What we are saying, can we stop fraud? Can we be honest? This is about all of us. It's about a generation. It's about our children, all of us, So can we be honest? If really it's about how many teachers, you can be paying. You can't be charging every parent 50,000 just because you're paying teachers. We are expecting plus or minus 5,000 there, about 6,000.
But does it depend? For example, I'll give you an example of an area like Northeastern, where we know teachers are not going the whole of last year.
Can I give you a challenge? Let me challenge you. Display the fee structures for Northeastern province, the cheapest. Display them here. But Nairobi schools, town schools, Nakuru schools, the most notorious, they charge more. So the rationale is not holding.
Point of correction here, I begin with the corrections first. And on this show, I've had Elimu to argue that there are more teachers in Nairobi and less teachers in the village schools, and we can balance. And I realized later on when Elimu to calculate the number of teachers who should be in school, they use body mass as taught in class 4 and class 5. You don't use body mass, bracket or addition, bracket. Thank you. Moving forward, you use what is called the curriculum-based establishment.
No, tell us facts.
The curriculum-based establishment will give you the number of teachers that should be in a school, in an establishment. You don't go around, take the number of teachers, divide by the number of students, and say you have got the number of teachers.
So this guy argues like as if when you're not a teacher, you cannot understand basics about education.
Make your point.
Moving forward, what we need to do is the following: that the schools must be ring-fenced or protected against inflations. This can be done by allowing schools to shop directly from cereal boards that are available, so that they are not hit so hard by inflationary prices that are in the market. School equipment. We originally had the school equipment scheme, and then we had another institution called ZEBU that would import equipments for science and then give to schools at subsidized prices. That scheme, if it came back, then you'll find that the cost of equipments and school equipments and even the science facilities will go down, and we shall check on fees. Going back to the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Education is allowing some people, some marauders, some organizations to also get money from schools. I've taken that to Parliament severally. You are aware there are people moving around schools picking money that the government sends there in millions. You have not done.
What are you talking about? You've substantiated what you're saying. Thank you. What are you talking about? I was making wild claims against that. Tell us here.
I'm in court over that particular matter.
Why don't you tell us?
When I mentioned that,
the whole nation.
This was the Parents Association. That matter.
So you have an issue with the Parents Association.
We have the issue.
Kindly just say what you're saying. I mean, substantiate what you're saying. The people who walk around from the ministry.
What's your problem with the Parents Association?
Of education, through a letter, and this is good for Kenyans, and thank you for telling me to say that. I talk on behalf of the teachers and the parents of this country. Wrote a letter to a Parents Association to get money from school.
How much and how does
they are getting
school fees?
5,000 shillings from every school in second school and 3,000 from primary school. If you calculate that, 3,000 times 20,000, you can calculate the amount of money being got.
We are wasting time.
No, we are not wasting time.
We are wasting our time.
We don't have a voted for that. Because we don't have a voted for that. So where does this money come from? Those are some of the things you are seeing there.
That is an insult to everyone's intelligence.
Let me talk now. Omboko, that is not what we have seen there. Yes. And for our viewers, it's important to note here that we talked to the Ministry of Education officials. They were supposed to be part of this panel, but they did for one reason or another. They did not show up because the questions are still raised. Why are the schools flouting these guidelines? Where is the implementation from the Ministry of Education? And why does this thing keep happening time and again, and there's no action from the Ministry of Education? So those questions we would have put to the Ministry of Education, but sadly they could not be here for one reason or another. I want to get the parent here, and I want to get it from you, because there was a challenge here from Ken Okoth, the Kibra MP, saying you should not pay anything that goes up and above the set guidelines. First of all, have you paid, and have you paid according to the guidelines?
I've paid according to the guidelines, of course. And
so you went up and above the guidelines?
Yes, I went above the guidelines. And what I want to agree about is that there is some justification in some schools as to why they have to go above.
Some schools?
In some schools. And one thing I want to agree with you is that maybe the government should have considered schools in some areas and in other areas like Nairobi, Eastern, Nyanza, Ugenya, you know, you cannot buy a sack of maize in Nairobi, goes for around 5,000 or 3,000. In Ugenya it goes for 1,200. Now, there is that variation. So I want to agree with you that somehow the ministry should have gone ahead and find a way
to reconcile
the figures. And again, I want to agree with you here that Omboko Milemba is not defending parents, he's defending teachers, because he was one of the teachers some time back. Now, why am I saying this? It's because, Mr. Omboko, the inflations in schools, I take an example. I was in high school in 1995, not today. And then
I should have taught you.
The head teacher, he was the supplier of maize in a school. I can't mention the school. The posho mill that was doing the flour was the head teacher's posho mill. The housing of teachers from far away was within the school compound. The housing belonged to the head teacher. So the inflations in schools, mostly on Omboko, is from the head teachers. We can't really blame the government.
How do you believe in that?
Okay. Let me ask you this question. We're winding up now. We're winding up because of time. I want to get a way forward from all of you. Let me start with you. Could you dare what Ken Okoth said? Obviously, you have not done it because you said you paid above the guidelines for the fees this term.
Yes.
Could you dare say, I'm not going to pay what you're asking me to pay as a parent? Can you dare do that?
You cannot do that.
Why?
Because one thing, it is agreeable within an AGM. It is agreeable within an AGM. We will only go and pay what the government implements when the government itself is following up on the same.
So you're worried that the government is not following up on the same?
It isn't.
Right, like I said, it was important for the government to be here tonight, but they were not. So your way forward, very briefly, I'll give you 30 seconds each.
My way forward is that the government should actually, when they implement or when they pass on a regulation on school fees, they should exactly follow up. And then I believe the head teachers also, they argue their cases out. If the school fees has to be inflated, they argue their case to the ministry, and then they agree with the ministry on the school fees. Whether in Nairobi or in Northeastern, they have to have an agreement on the way forward.
Agreeable to everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're discussing this problem where some schools, not the majority, have chosen to break the law. We will hold and we must hold accountable the few that are breaking the law and acting with impunity and are being defended here by the likes of Omboko. We will hold them accountable, and Matiang'i must start, and he must know we will back him up as parliament to enforce this constitution. Teachers who have been in schools and are professionals and are great should have no worry at all if you've risen and been promoted to be a head teacher for 4 years or 8 years in a school, to take your excellence to another school. And these teachers who stay in the same places are the ones who get to have this cartel behavior, this corruption, this thievery from our parents, and the denial of children. These people must be held accountable, and I am very happy that they are not the majority.
Yeah.
They are a minority, and this country must face it. And even parents, I'm telling you, as you face these people, it's a time of impunity. You're paying out of your pocket. You've already paid taxes for that school.
Okay.
Stop paying extra. Pay exactly what is gazetted by the government, and let that head teacher come and lobby us politicians to increase the budget from your taxes to make every school funded with enough teachers.
Right. Very briefly.
You can see I am facing mob justice here, and this is what teachers face outside there. But it's okay. We have learned to leave the hard way. We have learned to leave the hard way, but please don't call teachers of this country thieves. These are the guys whom you are entrusting the minds of your children with, yet you pay them far much less than you pay your gardeners, and you don't think about it. But then I want to say that
he said
let's look at the other issues.
He said some schools,
it was my mark. It was my time. It was my time.
Yeah.
It was my time.
Okay.
Let's look at the issues that are facing the principals, like infrastructure, the shortage of teachers, so that we can actually moderate school fees. And lastly, to the teachers of Kupet, it is true that we realized the Teacher Service Commission was deducting your money through medical allowance, but we never sanctioned them. So we have asked our teachers to be patient as we tackle the issue of Almine. Tomorrow we shall be going to court. Thank you for inviting me.
I just want to ask you one question.
Please,
very briefly. Are you saying all these schools that are charging up and above what has been set as the government guidelines, are you saying all of them are justified to do so? There could not be financial malpractices in some. Is that what you're saying?
I never said that. I argued my point and I've rested.
So are you, no, but you have, at no time, you've been asked so many questions by me and by them, at no time have you said that any school, I mean, you've actually been just saying all schools are justified to do this.
Yeah, slippery like a snake. But we know, and I will repeat, that there are some rotten apples amongst the head teachers in this country, and we must hold them accountable, and you help us to hold them accountable. They are ruining for you and all the other union members.
Let me respond.
The buck stops with BOMs, the buck stops with PTS, because they have the mandate. And let the ministry do its work and tackle the BOMs. And I like Matiang'i. Matiang'i has said, check the BOMs through the county structure. He seems to be focused to the law. But you don't come here and relate staying in school to feel criminal like Mheshimiwa is doing. That is wrong. There's no correlation between how long you stay in school and how much you increase fees. These are not facts that cannot be proved.
All right.
Yeah.
Janet,
well, I think for me, I want to call upon the education stakeholders to be more serious with especially matters. And I think here the Ministry of Education cannot escape the blame, because it's only yesterday when we were here in Belio asking for reports of those heads that have violated fees guidelines, despite them being there for the entire year and him having taken no action. So we don't think that is so serious of him, and we expect much more. And that is what we are talking about, measurement, and that's what we are talking about, accountability within the education sector. And number two, I want to just give a piece of advice to my friend here. If unions are not very careful, they're becoming more irrelevant by the day.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And my final question to you, just like I asked Omboko, not all these schools, again, some of them could be justified to do what they're doing. Instead, because of the problems they have with teachers, because of the problems they have with infrastructure. It's not all the schools you're saying. I mean, if they don't go by the guidelines, you're not going to demonize all schools, are you?
And that's why, for me, I think it's a pity, because when this problem goes on, we will hear Parliament and the unions and everyone else saying, let us impeach Matiang'i, yet he came the other day. Because we should be now having data generated by the Ministry of Education, for example. How many schools have adhered to my guidelines? How many have not adhered? And by what deviation? We should be having all that data, but in its absence, then we are not even able to know whether what we are saying here is correct, that not all schools have actually not adhered to the guidelines. So the Ministry of Education should be more serious, and it's not necessarily the CS. We've got a technical person there, the PS, but every other time he escapes blame because everybody just sees the CS. But Kaimenyi left, he wasn't the problem. Now we've got Matiang'i. What is it again? What is it again with the Ministry of Education?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Janet Mudhoni from Elimioto Coalition, Omboko Milemba, Chair Kupet, Stephen Makunga. Thank you so much, a parent who's been talking to us, and Ken Okoth, Member of Parliament, Kibbrand, also a member of the Parliamentary Committee on Education. Thank you all for making time for Monday Special tonight. Let me take a look again at some of your tweets as we wind up. Fee increment is always after mutual consent during AGMs. This is Oweru Dien, that one we read. Airo Lydia, free increment should translate to better performance and conducive learning environment, not luxury. At Conrad Ochengo, let's focus on the needs of the schools in this country for us to improve the quality of education. And Jackson Arunga, the government doesn't make a follow-up to ensure implementation of new fees, therefore leaving a loophole for rogue head teachers. And like we said, it is very sad we couldn't have the government as part of this discussion tonight. But thank you so much again to our guests for making time for us, and thank you for watching Monday Special. I'm Hussein Mohammed. Have a good night.